never thought I'd be the kind of guy to share one of those late-night Reddit horror stories. But here I am, sitting at my desk, lights on, blinds shut, and checking the porch every few minutes like I'm still being watched. My name's Chris. I'm 35, and I work nights at a small print shop in town. The kind of job where you lock up around 2 a.m., tired enough to see shapes in the shadows, but sober enough to know what you saw. This story isn't about ghosts, not unless you count the kind that wear skin and wait for you where you live. It started one Friday night in October, cold enough for your breath to look like smoke. I'd just clocked out, walked to my car, and noticed the parking lot was too quiet. Normally, a couple of delivery vans sat there overnight, but they were gone, leaving the lot wide open. My car was the only one under the lone street lamp, a pale yellow glow that barely touched the edges of the asphalt. I unlocked the door, got in, and the first thing I noticed was how heavy the silence felt. No crickets, no hum of distant traffic. Just silence that pressed on your eardrums. I live outside town, about 15 minutes down a rural road lined with woods. No houses, no gas stations, no reason for anyone to be out there unless they belonged. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I already felt that hum in my chest. The kind of paranoia you can't explain, but you don't ignore. I parked, grabbed my stuff, and froze halfway up the porch steps. The porch light was on, but it wasn't my porch light. I don't leave it on when I'm gone, and I remember clearly flipping it off that morning. It glowed too bright, like a stage spotlight trained on me. I stood there, heart beating out of sync, trying to rationalize. Maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe the timer glitched. Then I saw it. Movement under the porch. Just a shadow at first, small, subtle, like someone shifting their weight. I told myself it could be an animal, raccoon, possum, until I noticed the angle. Too tall. Too human. A hand gripped one of the porch's wooden beams, pale against the dark. Fingers that twitched like they were testing the air. I didn't move. My keys were tight in my fist, metal biting my palm, and every nerve screamed at me to run back to the car. Instead, I cleared my throat, forced out a shaky, "Hello," like some idiot in a horror movie. Silence. Then a low chuckle. Not loud, not cartoon villain, but soft, deliberate, like someone testing how it would sound in the air. I backed down the steps slowly, never turning my back. The light overhead buzzed, flickered once, and I swear I saw the outline of a face in that gap under the porch. Wide eyes, teeth too visible in the glow, smiling at me like they'd been waiting all night. I bolted to my car, locked the doors, and sat there breathing like I just sprinted miles. My headlights lit up the porch, but nothing moved. No hand, no face, just shadows where wood slats met dirt. I told myself I was imagining it, that exhaustion was tricking me. I even started the engine and thought about just driving off to a friend's place. But something about leaving the house, my space, unguarded felt worse than staying. So, like an idiot, I got out again. I grabbed the flashlight I keep in the trunk and swept it under the porch. Empty. Just leaves, dirt, and cobwebs. No man, no footprints, nothing. The chuckle still rang in my ears, though. like it had been pressed into my brain. I forced myself inside, locked every door, and sat on the couch with the flashlight still in my hand. That's when I heard it, scratching on the living room window, slow and deliberate. Not claws, nails. Human nails dragging down glass. I didn't look. I didn't need to. The sound told me everything. Someone was out there. Someone who wanted me to know they could reach me. I called the cops. They showed up 20 minutes later, lights flashing bright enough to make me feel safe for the first time all night. They checked the porch, the windows, even walked the property line. Nothing. They told me it was probably kids messing around, that Halloween always brought pranksters. I wanted to believe them. But as the officers pulled away, I caught it again. That same chuckle, floating from the tree line, low and patient. I shut the blinds, sat back down, and told myself one thing over and over. Next time I see the porch light on when it shouldn't be, I won't stop at the steps. I'll keep driving. Because I know now, someone's out there, waiting for me to forget what I saw. I live in a quiet neighborhood where nothing ever happens. The kind of place you convince yourself is safe just because the lawns are trimmed and the mailboxes aren't bent out of shape. My name's Tyler. I'm 32, and I swear on everything. I know that last winter I learned just how wrong that illusion of safety really is. It was a Thursday, about 11:30 p.m., when I got home from a late shift. The snow had been falling for hours, thick enough to coat the street in white and silence. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something strange. There were footprints already there, leading from the street straight up to my garage. The hot snow had only been falling steady for maybe 40 minutes, which meant whoever made them had been there recently. I killed the engine and just sat there with my breath fogging the windshield, staring at the dark line of tracks. They weren't messy or scattered like a jogger's. They were deliberate. Each print perfectly in line, like someone had been standing still in front of my garage for a long time, then paced back and forth before walking around to the side of the house. I told myself it had to be a neighbor, maybe a delivery guy confused by the addresses. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Nobody delivers packages at midnight in the snow. I got out of the car, my boots crunching against the fresh layer, and walked quickly to the door. My porch light flicked on with the motion sensor, casting a weak yellow glow that stretched across the driveway. That's when I saw him. A figure at the edge of the driveway, standing just beyond the light's reach. He was tall, broad shoulders, wearing something dark enough that he looked almost like part of the night. His head was tilted, down, like he was staring at the prints in the snow between us. My first instinct was to call out, demand to know what he wanted, but my throat locked. The guy slowly lifted his head, and even from that distance I could see he was smiling, wide, like it hurt. He didn't move forward, just stayed there, letting me know he was watching. I fumbled with my keys, got inside, slammed the door, and locked every bolt I had. I killed the lights inside, but kept the blinds open just a crack so I could watch the driveway. At first, he didn't move. He just stood there, head tilted, smiling at nothing. Then, after what felt like forever, he crouched down in the snow and started drawing. I pressed my face to the glass and squinted. He was using his gloved hand to trace something into the white. At first I thought it was random, but then I realized he was drawing shapes. Circles, triangles, strange crooked lines that looked like symbols I couldn't recognize. He finished, stood up, and looked straight at the window where I was hiding. That smile again. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and called the cops. I whispered, terrified the man would hear me through the walls. They told me to stay inside, that a unit was on the way. 5 minutes. That's all I had to wait. But those 5 minutes stretched into hours. The guy didn't leave. He just stood there in my driveway, staring at the house. At one point, he lifted a hand and waved. Slow, deliberate, fingers curling and uncurling like he was beckoning me. When the red and blue lights finally lit up the street, the figure moved. Not like someone startled, but like someone who had been waiting for the curtain to fall. He turned, walked calmly down the street, and disappeared into the snow before the officers even stepped out of their car. They searched, but the snow had already buried most of the prints he left behind. All that remained was the drawing in the driveway, half covered but still visible. A crooked circle with lines crossing through it, like a child's version of a compass. The cops told me it was probably a trespasser, maybe drunk, maybe high, and promised to patrol the area more often. They left me with reassurances that felt empty. That night, I barely slept. Around 3 a.m., I got up to check the window again, just in case. And that's when I saw it. Fresh prints in the snow, leading from the street to the edge of my driveway. But this time, they stopped halfway, as if he wanted me to know he'd come back, but didn't need to finish the walk. Every snowfall since, I check for prints. Most nights, the driveway stays clean. But sometimes, after midnight, I'll see them. Again, just a few steps, leading nowhere, always facing the house. I live on the edge of town, the kind of place where the streetlights don't quite reach the end of the block, and where the woods behind my house stretch for miles into nowhere. It was never really a problem. I liked the quiet, liked that my dog could run the yard without traffic screaming by. I didn't think much about how lonely it looked from the outside until that night. It started ordinary. I'd finished a late shift, came home, threw a frozen pizza in the oven, and sat in the living room with my back to the big sliding glass door that leads to the deck. The curtains were half open because I'd gotten lazy about shutting them. The only light inside was the oven glow and the dull blue of the TV. That's when my dog growled. Not barked, growled low. The kind of sound that vibrates before you even hear it. I muted the TV and listened. The woods make noise. Owls, raccoons, all that. But this was different. Then I heard it. A tap. Soft. Fingertips against glass. Turned my head slowly and saw the curtain sway. Someone was on the other side of the sliding door. For a second, I caught the reflection of a face pressed to the glass. Not enough detail, just pale and wrong, with the faintest smile that didn't move with the eyes. My heart pounded, but I tried to act calm, like maybe it was a drunk neighbor who'd wandered over. I stood up, flipped on the porch light. Nothing. Empty deck. Woods still. My own reflection staring back. I told myself the dog imagined it, closed the curtain, and went to get my food. But when I opened the oven, I saw it again, reflected in the microwave above the stove. A head, quick, leaning, around the edge of the curtain before sliding back out of sight. I grabbed a flashlight, yanked the curtain open, and shined out onto the deck. Empty. Only the trees moving in the breeze. I should have called the cops, but what was I supposed to say? A smile was staring at me through glass. They'd tell me to lock up and go to bed. So I did. I locked the sliding door, shut every curtain, double-checked the deadbolt. I even pushed the couch against the door for good measure. Sometime past midnight, the dog growled again, this time staring at the front door. I crept over, peered through the peephole. Across the street, parked at the corner, was a car I didn't recognize. No lights, just sitting there. I waited, watching. 5 minutes. 10. Then the driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. He didn't walk to any house. He just stood there in the dark, head tilted up like he was sniffing the air. Then he turned slowly, and though the distance was too far to see his face, I swear he was smiling. I backed away, heart hammering. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and kept every light off. I checked the back, still quiet, no movement. When I returned to the front, the car was gone. Relief hit me until I noticed something else. Small stones, perfectly stacked, sitting on my porch rail. They hadn't been there earlier. I didn't sleep. I sat in the hallway with the knife and the dog listening. Around 3 a.m. came another sound, the soft scrape of something against the back glass door. I froze. The dog whimpered. I didn't look at first, but when I finally did, I wished I hadn't. A hand was sliding slowly down the glass. Just a hand, pale in the faint porch light. Fingertips dragging like they were writing something invisible. Then it stopped. Silence. Minutes passed. I forced myself to peek. The hand was gone, but pressed against the glass was a faint chalk mark. A crescent shape. I stared until my vision blurred. I called 911. The dispatcher sounded tired, told me a unit would swing by when available. No car ever came. Maybe they drove past while I hid inside, but no one knocked, no one checked. At dawn, I finally dared to step outside. The stones on the porch were gone. The chalk mark was gone too, like it had never existed. But on the ground, pressed in the dirt by the deck stairs, were footprints. Bare, human. They led from the woods straight to my sliding door. And then, nothing. No trail away, as if whoever left them had vanished into thin air. I stayed with a friend the next night. When I came back the following afternoon, something new was waiting. On the inside of the sliding door, faint but clear in the right light, was a greasy smear shaped like lips. Like someone had kissed the glass from the other side.